Teia Barbosa is a community college transfer student going to UCSB this upcoming fall. She graduated from Milpitas High School in 2018, and today she will be talking about her journey, the transfer process, and tips in general.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, and then Yajo, I'll just signal to you when to change the slide. Is that okay?
So I can't really see the screen and everything, so if you could just say next slide, then I'll.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Hi everyone. So like Yajo said, my name is Teia Barbosa. I'm 20 years old and I've lived in Milpitas all my life. I'm currently entering my junior year of college and I'll be transferring to UC Santa Barbara in the fall as a communications and media studies major. Today, I'll talk to you all about my life journey and my educational life, as well as kind of giving you all some life lessons I've learned, not just as a student, but as a person. Next slide. All my 2018. We're open about. Yeah, should you skip a slide? Is there one before? No.
There shouldn't be. Let me go check it out real quick. Oh, this one. Sorry, my fault.
It might be out of. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And always so about our masters.
Did you want the next slide, or am I like cutting off?
I don't think she's on the.
Yeah, she left. All right, so we have some technical difficulties. I'll give her a few minutes real quick. Oh, she got kicked out. Dab, can you? Oh, there she is. Yeah, she could go back in.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Sorry.
No, you're good. Okay. So let me go back to where I was. Yeah, that slide. Thank you. My two sisters were diagnosed with autism at young ages. So my middle sister, Kaylin, she's the one leading her head on my shoulder. She was diagnosed at the age of 2, and Avery, my youngest sister, was diagnosed at 19 months. And they're not twins, they're about 5 years apart. So they're really just a big part of who I am. And because I grew up with sisters on the spectrum, I felt like I had this responsibility to kind of be a role model. It wasn't that my sisters and I were kind of working at the same pace. Like my sister, she just turned 13 and she just learned how to ride a bike, and so their progression is very gradual. And so I had always felt that I had to kind of embody this big sister position, but also I felt that I had to work for all three of us. Luckily for me, autism has just been a blessing for me. It's definitely continued to help motivate me as a student and become a better person and a better sister. So much of my success I owe to these two. Okay, you can do the next slide. Okay, so high school seems super far away from now, but it was only about 6 years ago that I was a freshman, just trying to adjust to being a student. The first couple of years of high school were really rough for me. It wasn't until probably the end of my sophomore year that I was really able to kind of take control of who I was as a student and start taking advantages of the opportunities that I could find for myself. So one thing that I felt is really important just for any college student, especially when you get to that age, is finding a job. I started working at the mall when I was about 16. but since then I've always had a job. So I felt that that kind of really kept me busy and continued to help me motivate myself in, doing what I wanted to do. Currently, I work as a piano instructor, so I teach elementary students and I also teach students with autism. I was involved in many extracurriculars in high school. So I was in cheerleading, I was the class commissioner for my senior year, and then I was vice president for a club called Best Buddies, which works with developmental or students with developmental disabilities like my sisters. And with all these things going on, again, I felt that I could keep a busy schedule and that would keep me on my toes. So my senior year was pretty hectic. My regular high school schedule would be I would go to school from 8 to 3, and then I would have an hour to do something after school in the ASB room. After that, I would usually be at school until 6:30 or 7 for cheer, and that would be from Monday to Thursday. Fridays, I would be at school until about 10 p.m. for football games. And then this kind of just left me the weekend to work. So I would only work my job during the weekends, but again, I was probably busy every single day, but this really helped me kind of just keep busy and motivate myself to be organized in everything that I did. I would say that my senior year was probably the year that I loved the most, again, just because I was so busy and also I was just finding so many things to be involved in. So I would definitely say to kind of just take any opportunity that you feel can fit into your schedule and work from there. At the end of my senior year, I received this opportunity to apply to this scholarship, and it only pertains to Milpitas High School students. I'm not sure if they do it anymore, but definitely if you're an upcoming senior, kind of keep a lookout for it. It's called the Minnis Scholarship. There's different amounts of the scholarship. I believe there's one 20,000, two 10,000s, and one 5,000. I received the $10,000 scholarship, and so during this time, I was still trying to figure out what college I wanted to go to, if I wanted to end up going to the colleges that I got into. But I ended up deciding to go to community college, and the reason was simply because I did not feel at home with any of the colleges that I got into, and I really wanted to love it there. I wanted to feel like that was the place that I wanted to be for 4 years. And so I decided to just go to community college just to save money. Because I received this scholarship, it paid off for my first 2 years. So my first 2 years at community college were free. Okay, can you do next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so I decided that I would go to community college and I enrolled in Ohlone College in Fremont. I chose Ohlone simply because it was the closest to me. There wasn't really any major reason why I decided to go to Ohlone. And like many people, I was really insecure about going to community college because I thought I had worked too hard in high school to just go to community college. And I think you'll hear a lot of people say that about community college, like she just went to community college or she just got her associate's degree. And I feel like the community college system is really belittled. And I think it's gotten very popular around like over the years, but it still kind of has all these stereotypes around it. And that was definitely one of the reasons why I felt super insecure about going to community college, because of all the stereotypes. But going to community college, I really just wanted to get in and get out. I didn't really want to make any friends. I just wanted to do what I had to do to get good grades and to transfer. And this probably ended up being the worst mindset. If you're going to community college, or if you're thinking about going to community college, a lot of people say that it's just like high school. And I feel like if you end up going in with that mentality, then you're going to feel stuck. You're going to feel too comfortable. You're not going to feel motivated to transfer. And I think that's why a lot of students end up staying there for more than 2 years. So definitely, if you're going to CC, try to keep in mind that it's not like high school. It's only if you make it seem like it's high school. What I really loved about Ohlone is that everyone from Ohlone, or everyone that went to Ohlone, was not from Milpitas. So I met a lot of friends there. Most people that go to Ohlone are from Union City or Fremont. And so that kind of gave me a new environment. It didn't really feel like high school that way too. I know a lot of people go to like De Anza or Foothill. And I think once you kind of see a lot of people that you know, it can start feeling like high school. So keep in mind of any community college that you're looking into that may kind of be more popular than others. You might want to go to the one that's least popular because it'll kind of give you a fresh start. So for me, I started going to community college and then I made my education plan right off the bat. So if you are going to CC, an education plan is a plan that you're going to create with your counselor, and you're going to end up telling them, you know, what college you are thinking of transferring to, what major you are, and they'll talk to you about what courses are equivalent at your community college that are transferable to, let's say, UCLA. That way you'll be able to take all the classes that you need. It'll explain, you know, what classes you need to take for certain semesters and what classes you can take during the summer. And this kind of just gives you an idea of what you need to do or how long you're going to be there. Some majors may take longer, like nursing. A lot of my friends had to stay there for more than 2 years. And then some majors can actually be done in 1 year. So it just depends. So definitely if you're going to CC, keep in mind of doing your college education plan early. Definitely create a relationship with your counselor. I found a counselor that I loved probably my first semester at Ohlone, and from there it was just so much easier to communicate with her through email. Also, I just never really felt like she was annoyed with me if I ever saw her multiple times in a month, you know, and it was just nice to kind of just have someone that was more educated in terms of transferring and the transfer process. And she really got me through my first 2 years pretty quickly and pretty smoothly. Lastly, I would just say, if you're undecided and you're going to community college, or if you're going to university in general, just take classes or even general education classes that you feel are you know, interesting to you, because I've had friends who took a history class and they switched their majors to history or nursing or art. So keep that in mind, and also take advantage of the community college life. Because it's not as big as a university, you kind of have a lot of opportunity to connect with professors, connect with other people. You also have time to kind of focus on yourself. So definitely take advantage of the opportunities that you're given there with the amount of people that are around you. Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so I came into Ohlone as a business administration major. I wanted to do hospitality and business management, something along the lines of working in a hotel or becoming an event manager or event planning. Ohlone didn't offer hospitality programs, so I ended up just taking a basic business class at first, and it was financial accounting. And what I learned from financial accounting was that it was not my niche. It was definitely probably my least favorite class out of my 2 years at Ohlone. And so this really scared me, because I have felt that if I had changed my major then, that I was going to take the risk of having to restart my education plan if I had changed my major. Or let's say that I changed my major and I regretted my decision, then that would also set me back. So those are kind of things that I think a lot of community college students go through, is changing their majors a couple times, or feeling that if they do change their major that it'll set them back another year. And it could, if you end up, you know, changing your major midway, or if you end up changing your major multiple times. And so just keep that in mind. But also I ended up just changing my major anyways. And so when I changed my major to communications. And I changed my major because I was taking this public speaking course that was the first communications course I had ever taken. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with being able to express myself through my own words. It also kind of combined writing with speaking, and I loved writing. And so it was just kind of something that I at first thought was I was just going to take the class just to get it over with. But then I ended up finding something that I loved. And one day I was in the communications lab, which was a resource that Ohlone provided for communications students in order to get all their public speaking done and just hone their skills in public speaking. And one day I was in the lab and I had to do an impromptu speech. I had to make a speech off the bat. I had to just come up with a whole speech for 5 minutes, and I had to present it in front of a professor. And the professor asked me if I was a communications major, or if I had thought of becoming a tutor in the lab. And I had told her that I wasn't a comm major, that I was in business, but she was telling me that I should, look into it. And so I ended up, again, changing my major that semester because of what the professor said. And from there, after changing my major, I felt like everything kind of just fell into place for me. So that was nice. All right, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So after my first semester at Ohlone, I took the opportunity of becoming that tutor in the lab. I began to tutor students in public speaking, and then this also helped me. I was trained by professors to implement, different public speaking skills as a student. And from here, that same semester, I was taking a comm theory course, and the relationships I began to build with professors allowed me to grasp onto different opportunities. So one of the professors mentioned a study abroad to Italy and Greece, where I would study intercultural communications for a couple weeks. And intercultural communication was already on my education plan. It was already a course that I had to take. And so with the $10,000 scholarship that I received in high school, I thought that if I had extra money left over, why not? And so I ended up studying in Europe for a couple weeks. I took a communications class, and the entire trip was paid off for. And so it was amazing because it was my first time out of the country, and I had no idea who I was traveling with, but I made so many friends. And studying abroad was something that I didn't even know community colleges offered. So if you're interested in studying abroad and you are going to community college, that's definitely something that you can do. You kind of just have to keep your eye out for the flyers or anything that's posted. So definitely something that you guys can do. After that semester was over, I entered my last year at Ohlone, and I started my sophomore year taking a role as a social media marketing manager for a TEDx event that the communications department was running. It was a good way to implement my comm skills, but also implement any of the public relations skills that I was trying to test myself. Definitely public relations was something that I wanted to do and pursue later on. So this was a good opportunity for me to test out my skills. Because I was working as the social media marketing major or manager, one of the professors that I worked with in the lab offered me a position as the public relations manager for the entire department. And so I would be helping professors market any courses that they had for summer, for fall. I would also market any of the different events that the comm department ran, and I would also run all the social media. So I took that job, and additionally, I ended up scoring a internship at the lab. So I now work in the lab for a paid internship and as my public relations job. So it's kind of a hand-in-hand thing at Ohlone right now, but it definitely has allowed me to kind of implement all the skills that I've learned because I was taking all these comm classes. I now tutor students in public speaking, interpersonal and intercultural communication, critical thinking, and communication theory. And so when I say, take advantage of what community college offers you, definitely kind of just look into any of the opportunities that you see for yourself and anything that kind of pertains to your major that'll definitely help you out as a student and just, as your resume goes on. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So the transfer process is pretty different from the application process in high school. Luckily, there are the same dates. So CSUs go from, I believe, October 1st to November 30th, and UCs go from November 1st to November 30th. If you are planning to try to apply to a private, or especially if you're a transfer student, the dates fluctuate every year. So kind of just keep on the lookout for any of those dates and write those down. But applying for community college or applying for college in CC was easy for me because I was really familiar with the high school process, and also I was really close to my counselor. So I actually would tell you guys to start really early. I started my applications in April of 2019, and the applications weren't due until November. So I would definitely say get a head start. And I worked towards the end. So I worked from April to November, like the very end. So I would say just definitely get ahead of those. As a community college student, if your dream school is a UC, the UCs have this system called TAG. And if you haven't heard of that, it's short for Transfer Admission Guarantee. It only excludes the UCs like UCLA and Cal. But other than that, if you say have a really good GPA and you meet certain requirements and you apply for tag, you're basically guaranteed admission to your chosen UC. You can't choose multiple, you can only choose one, but this is definitely, it's really helpful and it's really easy. The minimum GPA for all the UCs, I believe, is a 3.4. But I would definitely say to just be competitive, try to aim for a 3.7. The highest GPA you can get in community college is a 4.0 anyways. So a 3.7 to a 4.0 is probably your ideal range. My only suggestion, and probably the most important one, is just to get your grades up as high as possible, and then just kind of get involved with anything that you can that pertains to your major. For example, me, when I did the TEDx event or when I studied abroad to study communications, those were things that I could talk about in my college essays. And so the UCs really like to see, you know, that you're doing things that pertain to your major and you're also honing your skills for your first 2 years of community college. Additionally, I want to say that if you are going to community college, what's really amazing about CCs is that they have all these workshops you can go to, from you know, how to apply to a UC. They'll show you, you know, what you should write, like a very good essay for a UC essay and then a really bad essay. They'll have UCLA representatives come visit for you to talk to, or any school, I believe, mostly state schools though, so mostly CSUs and UCs, not too much privates, but definitely these workshops will help you out in terms of transferring and doing your applications. Okay, next slide. Okay, so throughout my life, there are a lot of things that I've learned, and I think as a student, it's just really hard, especially in high school and college. You're just kind of trying to figure yourself out. And so I kind of wish that someone, even, you know, before college or even before high school, I wish someone told me that there was time for me, you know, that I had time, because as a student, I had always struggled in, you know, feeling like I had to follow this perfect path and, you know, just have everything set in motion. So community college was not part of my path at all. I really wish that I had gone straight to a 4-year, but then I realized that, you know, going to CC was probably one of the most, probably one of the best decisions that I had ever made, if not the best. And so one thing that one of my professors had told me is kind of deal the cards that you're given as if they were the cards that you wanted. And so I know that, you know, all of us kind of go through something, but definitely as students, if you're struggling with something and you feel that you aren't supposed to be following this plan, or you feel that you diverted off your plan, I feel that you have to kind of make the most of what you have. And so I definitely did that in community college. Community college is definitely what you make of it. Another thing that I want to say is one of my professors had told me that no one is successful unless they work for it. And this really stuck with me because I had known so many people in my life that, you know, always complained about how their life wasn't going the way they wanted it to, but they also weren't hard workers. And so I would just say that as long as you work hard for something and you're content with the amount of effort that you have given it, you should definitely be proud of yourself. And I feel that, again, no one is going to be successful if you don't work for it. If you're just going to sit there and not do anything, then you're not going to be a successful student. And so that's something that I have definitely implemented in not just, you know, my educational life, but also just me as a person. And I think that's important for any student to know, that they just need to work hard for things that they want to earn. Lastly, going back to my sisters, living with autism in my life wasn't until recently that I realized that my sisters were the ones teaching me. You know, I wasn't teaching them a whole lot, but they were definitely teaching me. And so one thing that I realized is that every little accomplishment with these two is a milestone, from, you know, learning how to swim to learning how to ride a bike. You can just see how happy they are just from these little things. And so just as a person, and, you know, my lesson to all of you is to just be proud of the small things that you accomplish, even if you feel that they're not worthy of, you know, being successful, or you feel like they're just not as, I guess, praiseful as other accomplishments that you see other people doing. They definitely are. And so my sisters have definitely taught me that every accomplishment should be celebratory. All right, next slide. Okay, so as I close, I just wanted to update you all about what I'm currently doing. So I'm still currently working my public relations job and my tutor job on top of my my piano instructor job, and I plan to move to Santa Barbara in a couple months. And I hope that, I can just kind of do the distance learning, even if we're not really going to school. I kind of just want to get the college experience. And so I want to leave off with my favorite quote. It kind of just reminds me that I was given a very special life, and I'm sure everyone has. But it's kind of just helped me figure out, that I wanted to design a life that I love to live. So this quote says, "There was a life that I might have had, but I am having this one." Thank you.
All right, thank you, Teia, for such a wonderful presentation. So now we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have a question, either type it in the chat, or you could easily say me, and then I could unmute you, and you could say your question. So I'll start off with some of the questions we had in the form that we sent out, a separate form. So one of the questions we had was, what is one thing you like about UCSB, and what is one thing you dislike about it? What is something about the college that sets it apart from other UCs?
Okay. So, oh my goodness. So UC Santa Barbara, so it was one of my top choices, and what I was really looking at was different, sorry, my camera's off. Different programs. So UC Santa Barbara was one, I think it's like the 4th public college in the country, or in the state, sorry. So it's the top number 4 college in the state. And then also their communications program was amazing. So definitely, like, if you're in computer science or, whatever major that you're in, definitely take a look at their major. And I think one thing that I didn't like about UC Santa Barbara is, I guess, how big it is. I would love to go to a private school just for the intimacy, but it's also super expensive. So I would just say probably the size, because once the college is bigger, it's harder to sign up for classes. It's kind of hard to find classes. So that's definitely one of the cons. And then what was the second part of the question?
What is something about the college that sets it apart from other UCs?
Okay. Well, if I'm talking about physically, the college is built on a beach. I recently just signed off on an apartment, and my apartment overlooks the beach, so that's definitely a plus. Some of the classrooms overlook the beach, so that's your view. In terms of educationally, I don't know too much about it, only with my major, but definitely one of the things that I loved was, personally for me, they have an autism center. So I felt like that was kind of like my calling. I felt like that was probably the perfect time for me or the perfect school for me, just because it has an autism center that I can work at. And they're definitely really involved in terms of, I believe, their basketball team and also their cheerleading team. So if you're looking for extracurriculars or clubs, I know that they have a lot of clubs that have to do with like diversity, and then also their sports. So.
All right, yeah, definitely. So another question we had, I know you talked about it in the presentation and everything, but someone said, I'd like to ask Teia Barbosa about what she did in high school to get accepted into UCSB.
Okay, so remember, I went to community college. Yeah. But what I do want to say is, like, in high school, I really messed up on my first 2 years of high school. So because of that, I have felt like I did not get into the school that I wanted to. But definitely for high school students, I would say that they always say, like, being a well-rounded student is something, but what I learned just being in high school and community college is that it's definitely a lot about your grades, and it'll still be that way if you go to community college. So I would just say that definitely, they really look at kind of your merit and your GPA, and it does get competitive every year. So, yeah.
All right, definitely. Another question we had is, what is being a communications major like? Is the coursework challenging? If so, in what kind of ways is the coursework rewarding or challenging?
So, as a communications major, I think one thing that you have to understand is you have to be very outgoing. So, you have to be willing to definitely talk in front of a lot of people. I think you definitely have to be a people person. One thing that we learn a lot is that we learn how to communicate with people, right? But every course, I would say, for me, it wasn't challenging because I love talking to people. But for people who aren't really good at public speaking, or they're just not good at talking in front of people, I think it can be really difficult. The courses aren't challenging. It just depends on how you are. But I would say that every course for communications requires some sort of public speaking, and you'll do that for every single course. So just keep that in mind.
All right, cool. So this one you talked about in the presentation again, but I'm supposed to like read off all these questions.
Okay.
So, what made you choose your major in communications? How did you figure out what you wanted to major in?
Okay, yeah. So I didn't go, I didn't go into super detail, but like I said, I was a business major. And then when I took financial accounting, I really hated it. Like I was really struggling in the class. It was to the point where I was like studying for that class probably 7 hours out of the day after school. And then the rest of my classes I would just do the next day. And so the whole thing about like me choosing my major, I feel like the statistics for students who change their majors, it's more than half. I mean, if you end up changing your major as a college student, that's probably like everyone else. And so I found that I liked communications because I took a public speaking class. And so I realized that I really liked public speaking. And so it just depends. Like if you find something that you're really passionate about, or you realize that you really, really like something, that's probably the main thing that I see in terms of people like choosing their majors or changing their majors. So definitely like take different classes, or if you really feel like you don't like your current major, then try to find classes that you feel like will interest you, and maybe you'll be able to change your major from there.
Cool. So another one was, you said you worked while attending community college. So how did you manage your time, like both with school and a job? You could talk about both in like high school and community college if you want.
Okay. So in high school, I kind of gave like a rundown of my schedule. I wasn't super busy throughout high school until my senior year, but I would say that my senior year I was more busy than I was in college. So in college, what's really great about it is that it's almost like block schedule. So you can schedule your own classes so long as you kind of get ahead of it. So there was one semester in college that I was only in school from Monday to Thursday from 8 a.m. to 11:30, and the rest of the day that I had to myself. So just imagine, like, I'm only at school for how many hours in the morning, and then I was able to work at night. And then what was really great is I had never had a class on a Friday. So every single semester that I was at Ohlone, I never had a class on a Friday. I would always have 3-day weekends and 4-day weeks. So what's really great about college in general, I'm not too sure about universities, but definitely community college, is that the scheduling is amazing, that you can totally make it at your own time. If you're a morning person, then definitely try to get 8 a.m. classes because they'll end by like 9:30. And if you sleep in all day, then start taking classes that start at like 4 or 5. So that's kind of how I was able to manage it. But definitely like in high school, I was spreading myself way too thin. But in college, it's been pretty easy.
All right, yeah, definitely. Another one was do you have any tips on staying motivated to get work done on time without getting distracted?
Honestly, no, because I still procrastinate too. But like I've told myself this since I was probably in 8th grade, like I always get it done, whether or not I have to stay up like until 2 or 3 a.m. I always get it done, but I would definitely say like planners have really helped me out because I know like when I need to get things done or like when there's a small amount of time. I would also say like I kept reiterating that I was always so busy, but because I had such a busy schedule, that really motivated me to like, okay, I have to finish this like during this hour because I won't have time later, you know? And so keeping busy really kind of puts you on your toes because you have such a strict schedule on yourself that you have to be able to schedule things to fit into like those little breaks and kind of do homework, then go to work, and then do homework again. So I would just say like staying busy really helped me. And then from time to time, I'll procrastinate, but for the most part, probably staying busy.
Mhm, definitely. So this is the last one that we got from the form. So you talked about how you wish you had time before high school and everything, but is there anything you wish you knew before starting college?
What I wish I knew for, I think I wish I knew that like it was okay to go to community college because like I mean I can't even imagine like seniors right now who are so scared to go to community college because I just remember feeling like so pressured and I felt like holy crap, like I worked so hard in high school, I should have just went straight, you know, why didn't I just pick that college that I got into? But I think people just have to realize like community college can give you so much, it can give you even more than a university. And so definitely I just wish like someone would have told me that if anything I was making probably the best choice in going to community college. And so like I hope anyone going to community college can like just know that 2 years flies by so fast. And even when I just graduated in May, like I kind of wish that I stayed a little longer. So yeah, community college is definitely like what you make of it. So.
Okay, cool. So there's a question in the chat. Davlin asked, can you talk more about your experience studying abroad?
Yeah. So it was really short. I think definitely because it was a community college, it was short. So I think it was like either 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. But what happened was we were preparing for it for a couple months, I would say. And I only knew my professor. So I had never met anyone on the trip. So when I got on the plane, um, I didn't know who was going on the trip. I didn't know like anyone familiar. I had not bumped into anyone on campus that I saw. And so I think like once you're traveling with someone, definitely it's like almost like traveling like family. You kind of get close, right? You're like sleeping with other people. I had to, what kind of sucked was like in Europe, the hotels were really, really small. And so I had to room with like 3 other girls. So definitely it's kind of it's a lot of adjustment, especially like if your freedom definitely gets taken away for sure. And the days are really long. So you have a set itinerary, or at least for me, the program that I was under, and we would be doing something every single day, probably from like 6 a.m. to like 10 p.m. It was really fun. We went to Italy first. I got to see the Vatican, and then we traveled to Greece, and we were only in Greece for a couple days, but we went to like my professor brought us to some clubs because um, like I think the drinking age is like 16, but it was fun because I was able to just travel on my own. And then also when we were studying abroad, we would have to take notes everywhere we went. So we had to what we specifically did learning intercultural communication was we had to jot down anything that we saw that was different from the US, even if it meant like, for example, I wrote a whole essay on how the cashiers at, I think it was in Italy, the cashiers in Italy, they were really rude. And it, like I think that was just like a thing, you know, like they wouldn't ask us how we were doing. They didn't give us utensils. We had to like go up there and ask. And so it's very different from, you know, here in the US. But that's kind of what I studied was the difference in communication and the difference in like personalities from Italy, Greece, and to the United States. So definitely, I think studying abroad, at least for Ohlone, what they do, it's under a specific program and they have a set itinerary every single day. There's something to do and you just have to jot down all your notes during the trip, and then the course kind of starts once you get back home, and it's all online or it'll be in person. And you have to just what was it, it was like you had to be in all these discussions just talking about the trip and like what you learned or what you felt you learned pertaining to the course that you were taking or the subject that you're learning. So yeah.
All right, cool. So this is just a personal question for me. So you talked about how your sisters were on the spectrum and everything. Do you plan to do anything like during college or after college, with like the neurodiverse, anything in that field?
So I think like a lot of people thought I was going to do that like throughout my whole life, or even, you know, like become like a BMT or like a therapist or anything like that. But I think like I never like strayed that way because I felt like it was typical. Like someone who has like two sisters with autism ends up, you know, doing something in like neuro, like you said, or, you know, like a therapist. But what I really actually liked studying was psychology. And then it does talk about, you know, autism. So I did mention that UC Santa Barbara has a autism center. So I actually recently just applied for a job there, hoping that I would be able to kind of work in the autism center. So that's something that I would do. But in terms of, you know, like doing anything that would work with special needs students or anything like that, the only thing I've really done is I teach students with autism piano. And then I volunteer from time to time at MHS in the classrooms. So that's basically it.
Cool. I have another question. So you talked about how like your grades and everything like really matter a lot. But pertaining to the college application, I think you applied like to a Common App and everything. What do you think like besides grades matters more?
Oh, so one thing like in high school that I mean I felt like I did have enough to talk about, but in the essays, I think the essays really help. So one thing that I talked about was like talking about things that pertain to your major in your essays. So for example, um, for my UC essays, I talked about my time in the communication lab. I talked about my study abroad, and then I also talked about my TEDx event and my public relations job. And so what that shows is that you as a student, not only, you know, because there's prompts where it'll say like, what's your favorite hobby, or like what do you like to do on your spare time or something like that. But they really are looking at they're really looking at what you are doing as a student that connects to your major. So let's say you're a computer science major and you've been doing like, I don't know, a bunch of like off-campus coding classes. That's something that they're interested in because they want to know how you're building your skills as a student, not just, you know, in English and math or whatever, but also just in your major, and why it shows that you're passionate about your major, and it also shows that you're interested and that you want to continue that skill and you're starting early. So I would say the essays are a really big part of it. And what's really cool is that there's so many things online that show you like good and bad essays. And so definitely the essays, the grades, and then I would say extracurriculars, definitely like anything that you've done like off campus, and having a job is definitely something that they'll ask you. So that's pretty important. But I would just say the essays and the grades.
All right, definitely. So that's like all the questions I have. So if anyone has any other questions, you can type it in the chat. I'll give you like a minute or so. But yeah. So I don't see any other questions. So I believe that's all we have. We just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming out and presenting today, talking about transfer process, giving tips and advice. You're more than welcome to like ask us if you want us to publicize anything. And we just want to say thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all we have, guys. And yeah, we're gonna end it off here. Thank you so much. Bye.